Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, mostly short stories. It's my weekly wrap-up. So I've been moaning in these weekly wrap-up videos for the last couple of weeks about feeling ill, having like a viral cold kind of a thing. That definitely hit me hard this week, and I've spent most of the week in bed. You may still be able to hear a bit of a croak in my voice. I think I'm starting to come out of it now, but I'm definitely still feeling quite ropey, and I haven't really been able to do anything at all this week other than read. So I spent a lot of time in bed dozing, and I have read a fair few books, which I will talk to you about today. And a lot of the time I've ended up reading shorter books, and in particular short stories, which is appropriate because it is Shorty September this month, the reading event dedicated to reading shorter stuff. But I just found my brain was much more able to cope with short fiction. So I've got, I think, 3 short story collections to talk to you about today, and some shorter novels as well. So I'll do what I normally do in this video. I'll talk about those, and then I will also talk about what's been on the channel and what's coming up on the channel. A quick bit of housekeeping first though. I have recently reactivated my Storygraph account. So Storygraph is, like Goodreads, a place where you can like write reviews and track your reading and things like that. So if you're on Storygraph, check my link tree for my link, the link to my account there. And I've also started doing a Substack newsletter, which will go out every weekend. So Substack is like a newish, it's not new actually, is it? A newish blogging platform where you can just write newsletters and posts and things like that. And I've decided to start using it for a weekly newsletter, which you can sign up to, which will tell you what I've been reading that week, give you mini reviews of the things I've been reading, and also links to all of the videos I put up that week. So it's kind of like an accompaniment or an alternative to this weekly video, should you want to access that information in written form rather than watching me ramble on with my croaky voice. So let me get on and tell you what books I've been reading. I am also, I would say, making a conscious effort to work through my backlog now of books I've been sent for review. So most of the books, many of the books I'm going to talk to you about today are books that fall into that category. So the first of those that I read was an excellent 70s set thriller, 6 Bullets to a Man by Jethro Wegener. So the first of Jethro Wegener's Duke Gibbs books. There are 2 in total at the moment, I think, and some short stories as well, I believe. So this was really good. So set in Mississippi during the early 70s, about this black guy, Duke Gibbs, who's come back from Vietnam. One of his buddies in Vietnam died and gave him a letter to give to his mum, who lives in Mississippi. So the book starts with Duke Gibbs arriving back in a very 70s feeling New York, and then travelling to Mississippi to give this letter to his dead buddy's mum. And there is like bad goings on in that town. There's a corrupt sheriff, there's like the KKK, all sorts of stuff going on, and Duke Gibbs rolls up his sleeves and sorts it out basically. So just a really engaging, gripping, tense thriller, lots of action. I really, really enjoyed it. If that's your kind of thing, check it out. Think of it as kind of a bit like, it reminded me a bit of Jack Reacher, in terms of that, like, you know, just one man wanting to sort stuff out kind of a story, but with maybe a bit more of a political edge than the Jack Reacher books have. But really, really fun. After that then, I read the first of the short story collections I read this week. This was Cruel Nature by D.B. Albiza, with illustrations by Elizabeth Quinones. This was just lovely. So D.B. Albiza sent me this a while ago. So she's a school teacher who I think teaches English and wanted to engage her kids more in reading and, you know, awake the love of reading in them. So she wrote a book of creepy horror stories for them to read. And they are really creepy. This is like a middle grade book, and I was expecting it to be kind of goosebumpsy, but it's definitely creepier than Goosebumps. Some of these stories really did send a shiver down my spine, and they're really fun. There's 7 stories in here. They're just really entertaining, and it's a beautifully put together book. Look how cute it is. It's really small and lovely, and the illustrations are phenomenal. I mean, look at that. That is just great. So I really, really recommend this. You can get it anywhere you would normally get books, pretty much, I think. And I should have said, the Duke Gibbs book is available on Amazon. This one seems to be available most places. After that then, I read a slightly longer book, but one that was very, very, very readable and enjoyable. This comes out in September, so it comes out later this month, and I will do a full review of it between now and then. So it's I'm starting to worry about this Black Box of Doom by Jason Pargin. I'm never sure, is it Pargin or Pargin? I think it's Pargin. Anyway, this is really fun. So this is about a guy who's like in his 20s. He's a bit of a loser. He's, kind of like stays inside all the time. His dad's always, trying to encourage him to go out and do more stuff. And he's got a job as like a lift driver. And this mysterious woman with this big black box hires him and says she'll give him like hundreds of thousands of dollars to drive her across the country. They're in California, to drive her across the country to Washington, D.C. with this black box. But he can't ask her what's inside the box. He can't look inside the box. He has to leave his cell phone behind and things like that. So it's just a really fun concept and a really, really well-written book. So it's a bit of a, with that concept, it's a bit of a caper. There's a lot of humour and things like that in here. But there's also some really interesting examination of like online social media culture and the way we, have come to interact with each other in the modern information age. So a really interesting book, as well as a very, very enjoyable and funny one. After that, then some more short stories. So I read a collection called Dread by Kevin Bachar. This, again, was just a really enjoyable collection of short stories. So 22 stories in this collection, really varied, a lot of different subject matters covered. There were, kind of like spooky ones. There were killer animals and things like that. So it covered pretty much the full range of horror fiction, really. The thing that most impressed me about this book was the way Kevin Bachar builds up tension in these stories. He really, really ramps it up. There's this fantastic one about these two cops who they've discovered this abandoned car, and there's been a spate of like cars showing up abandoned in the area, people going missing, and they go into these nearby woods to try and find the driver of the car. And the way he just ratchets up the tension through that story was phenomenal. Really, really well done. Just another really, really enjoyable collection. And again, definitely available on Amazon. I'm not sure if it's available other places as well. I'll try and remember to leave links to, what I'll do is I'll leave links to the Goodreads pages for the independently published books I'm talking about today. And if you go there, you can usually find places you can buy them online. So yes, that was very enjoyable. Next up, more horror short stories from an indie author. This was a collection called Red Moon by Kerry Richardson. So Kerry's a British author. And again, this was fun. So 6 stories, quite a slim volume, but really engaging. Again, a mix of different styles of story in here. There's the titular story, Red Moon, is kind of a Lovecraft kind of, Cthulhu mythos kind of a story, and I really enjoyed that one. There's a couple of interlinked ones about horrible goings on in a house, but just engaging horror written by someone who clearly really loves the horror genre. And another one that I had a really good time with. After that, then another horror short story collection. So this is one I've said I've been like, I need to focus on getting through like review copies that have been sent to me. This book, shamefully, was sent to me almost 2 years ago by the author to review. But I'm so glad I finally got around to reading it because it was really good. So this is a collection called Death is Funny Sometimes by an author called MC August. And this is a book that feels like it was written by a film lover. So there are lots of the stories in this either feel kind of slightly like films you may have seen or are about filmmaking. So, for example, the second story is about a woman who's an actress in giallo movies, who's like, she's a bit older than actresses in giallo movies normally are. She's kind of at the end of her career. And the director she's worked with throughout her career doesn't want to use her anymore. And it's about her getting her revenge. So a really engaging series of different, again, very differently themed stories. My favourite one was about a kid's sleepover that goes horribly wrong, which I think was just called Dead Kid at a Sleepover, which was really entertaining. Some of these stories are very, very funny. And the thing that most impressed me about this collection was the dialogue. The dialogue in these stories is fantastic. And that, I think, kind of, when I was thinking about the collection in my mind and linking up that, the fact that it's obviously written by someone who loves movies with the fact that the dialogue was so good, it just, those two things go naturally together, I think. So yeah, fantastically written dialogue. I really, really enjoyed it. So another collection I definitely recommend. After that then, so I read a book I'd really been looking forward to. So I've been really looking forward to, I'm starting to worry about this Black Box of Doom. I'd also been really looking forward to Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. So I talked about Nat Cassidy's book Mary on the channel. It was one of my favourite horror novels that I read last year. Rest Stop was just as good, if not better. So this is a novella. I think it's about 160 pages long. I am going to do a full review of it. It was excellent. So this is about a guy who's a musician who's kind of travelling a long way across America, and he ends up stopping at this rest stop to like fill up his car, and goes into the convenience store that's there, and it's deserted, right? And he goes into, well, he's waiting for the clerk to show up so that he can pay for the stuff he wants to buy. Nobody shows up, so he decides to use the bathroom, goes into the bathroom and gets trapped in the bathroom. And it just spirals from there. So you've got this kind of fairly slow build-up where like you get introduced to the characters and a bit of backstory and things like that. And then it just grips you, and it doesn't let go for like 100 pages. It was incredible. So tense. And then Nat Cassidy also manages to really build the character well. So you really feel like you get to know this guy. And maybe the simplicity of only having, kind of really one main character help with that. But you really get to know this guy. There's a lot of reflection on like religion and things like that in it. And there was just so much in this book. It was absolutely fantastic, and has a wonderful epilogue as well that wrapped things up beautifully. And then it's also really interestingly formatted. So googly eyes are a part of the whole kind of plot, if you like. And every so often in the book you get just a page with just like a googly eye on it. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it enormously. So that was the last thing I finished this week. Currently reading two things. So one is a book that my dad gave me, which is a book he had read many times and loved. I'm really enjoying it as well. Again, it is a short story collection. It's Nightmares in Geezenstacks by Fredric Brown. So I talked about Fredric Brown's book The Screaming Mimi in my August wrap-up. It was the last book I think that I read for Garb August, and I loved it, a crime novel. So Fredric Brown was better known as a science fiction writer, and this collection mixes together a load of different genres. There are horror stories in here, there's science fiction, a lot of science fiction in here, but some crime stories as well. And the thing that's amazing about this collection is most of the stories are really short. Like there are stories that are just a page long, and yet they manage to feel complete as a story. It's really brilliantly done. The other kind of story that's in here is a kind of story that I imagine may well originally have been published in Playboy or something like that, in that it's basically a bit of a kind of Shaggy Dog Story joke kind of a story that's also slightly bawdy. So those are quite entertaining as well. But yeah, a very enjoyable collection. And then I'm also reading a novel. So for my Novel Life Challenge that I've talked about on the channel, where I'm going to be reading a book from every year that I've been alive, I started that a couple of months ago. I've only just reached year 2, 1974, so I'm a bit behind where I should be. But anyway, I'm reading Jack Carter's Law by Ted Lewis. So this is the sequel to a book called Jack's Return Home, which was famously filmed as Get Carter, starring Michael Caine. Ted Lewis is a British crime writer from the 60s. And this is a book that is, it's like, if you imagine the classic American hard-boiled, like noirish style of writing, that quite kind of tough, brutal style of writing, but really incredibly readable prose, like Raymond Chandler and Jim Thompson and people like that. This is a book that's like that, but completely British. Just uses like tons of British slang and things like that, and just feels like a British version of that, but something that lives and exists in its own right. So it's just fantastic so far. I've only read the first couple of chapters, which is basically Jack Carter, who's the hero of the stories, or anti-hero of the stories, who's basically like an enforcer for this minor mob. And a guy they've been working with has been taken into questioning by the police and is now kind of vanished, and the suspicion is that he's grassing them up basically. But yeah, it's just fantastic so far. Really great prose, so enjoying that very much indeed. Right, I can feel myself wading a bit now, so let me quickly try and get through the channel stuff, and then I can go and have a rest. So in terms of stuff that's been on the channel in the last week then, so my review video this week was of a book called Letters to the Purple Satin Killer by Joshua Czaplinski, which is a really enjoyable, interesting take on the serial killer novel, told as a series of letters written to the killer who's in prison. I did my wrap up for August, or Garb August, so I talked about I think it was 27 or 28 books I read during August. I did an unboxing video and first impressions for this, the Bigme B751C, which is a new or newish colour Android e-reader, which I've been really enjoying reading. All the short story collections I've read this week have been read on this, or all the digital ones anyway. And then also I did a book haul video. Funnily enough, I've had a ton more books arrive recently, so I might have to do another book haul video very soon. In the week ahead then, so you're going to get a video with kind of a bit of a channel update, so talking about what I'm intending to do with the channel for the rest of the year, but also talking about things I'm going to be doing more broadly outside of YouTube. I'm going to do a video, I think, if my health holds enough for me to film a few videos this weekend, I'm going to do a video about extreme horror. So my thoughts on extreme horror, and also an invitation to people out there to recommend extreme horror books to me. So I've said publicly on the channel before, I'm not a big fan of extreme horror. A lot of the extreme horror I've read I haven't enjoyed, but I'm keen to try it more as a genre. I've been hanging out on Reddit a bit, on the r/extreme horror lit subreddit, and getting some recommendations there, but I wanted to talk to all of you and get some recommendations from you as well if you're an extreme horror fan. I'm also, I think, going to do a video talking about my ongoing ambition to give up using the Kindle ecosystem completely, which is going really, really well. So I'm conscious I haven't talked about that for a couple of months, I think. So I'm going to do an update video on that. And then I think my review video this week is probably going to be I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, but we'll see. Anyway, I will leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about this week. Let me know if you've got any great short story collection recommendations for me. As always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.